guys. Welcome back to the Discipline Life Podcast, the place where we talk all about power differential relationships and domestic discipline. I'm Aria, and this is my husband, Coda.
Hello, everyone.
Today's podcast is going to be a little bit of a shift from our normal content. Today, we are going to be kind of doing a little bit of a story time. This is in response to a comment that we got a few weeks ago asking us basically to detail a situation that required punishment, how that situation came about, how Coda determined that punishment was necessary, and kind of just how that all went. So that's what we're doing today.
We're going to go down memory lane, as they say today.
So do you want to start? Well, first of all, what situation are we going to be focusing on this topic?
There's a few to choose from. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, we've only been doing this for years, so there are a few to choose from.
Yeah, but she's actually a pretty good girl, so.
I was thinking our most recent would be
That's the one I was going to think of because it's the most prevalent on our minds, so.
I was about to say, we can probably remember the most about that time.
By the way, as you can see, we're trying something a little different today. Instead of having the mics on stands, we're trying something a little different for the Patreon. See if this looks a little better.
Because we do offer the podcast in video form on our Patreon. So if you want to get the podcast in video form, then click the link down below to join at the $5 a month level or up.
So we'll see if there's a bunch of mic noise. If there is, we'll just go back to what we were doing. But we're going to try this. So anyway, back on topic, the detailing a punishment that we recently just had.
This happened, a few weeks ago?
Yeah. As normal, I'm trying to remember exactly the scenario because...
I remember.
Okay. All right, so detail it. Because honestly, once something is done like that, I, to a certain extent, forget a little bit about it because I try to move on and forget the past.
So the way this situation came about is that Coda was talking to a friend. Do you remember any of this at all at this point?
Nope, keep going.
Okay, so Coda was talking to a friend, and his friend has recently gone on a new diet and has lost quite a bit of weight in a short amount of time and was really excited about it. And Coda has, to an extent, been on this health journey to try to figure out how to get just the effects of aging to alleviate some of those.
Just to feel better.
I was about to say, healthy. He has a lot of issues with inflammation of the joints and just, aches and pains,
Some of them from my years as a amateur athlete.
I was about to say, abusing your body in your youth as far as pushing too hard in sports and all of those things. Well, over the years, Coda has come to be gluten-free and then come to intermittent fasting and different things to just try to continue to alleviate these issues. And so his friend was telling him about this new diet that he was going on. And, now Coda doesn't have a whole lot of weight to lose, but his friend does. And so he was really excited that he was doing all of this. And so Coda, after talking to him, came to me and was like, hey, my friend's had this really great success. I want to try this thing. And it's a diet that I've heard a lot of negative things about.
And the more I dive into it, I can see why.
It's something that unless you do it very strategically, it can be very unhealthy if you're not very careful with it. Now there's some people that do it very well and they have success. And so, but it's not something that I've heard a lot of positive things about. So when Coda came out and he was really excited about this and he's like, I want to try this thing. I had a really negative reaction to that.
Which, by the way, that in and of itself is not the issue.
It's how I went about expressing my negative reaction.
Because I was okay with her having a negative reaction to it because she's my wife. She knows me in some ways better than I know myself. And so that was not the issue. Like, I just want to say that right away. It's okay for her to disagree.
Right.
And to have, like, I don't think that's going to work kind of thing.
But I took it as a personal offense that he wanted to try this diet. And I don't know why.
Well, part of it was, and so to be fair, let me at least say from my point of view, part of it was, and I understood, part of it was she does a great job preparing meals for our family. She puts a lot of time and effort into try to make meals that not only are healthy, but that we enjoy, that actually, taste like something, unlike, well, I'm not going to go there. Anyway, and
unlike your mother.
yeah. And so I very much appreciate that about her. And so I think she took it a little personally because she thought, oh, if he only goes to this, I'm not going to be able to prepare these meals that I work really, really hard to not only, again, be healthy, but to actually taste good and be enjoyable and all of those things that come with it. And so her initial reaction was not necessarily ask for clarification, because I admit that I probably could have communicated this a little better. So, but instead of asking for clarification, her first instinct was to get upset and to take it personally. And I don't want to use the word lash out, because that's not fair.
I became very defensive.
Defensive. There we go. There's the word.
I shut down. I became defensive. I didn't ask for more questions. And in the process of having that response, I became somewhat disrespectful.
And that's where the rubber met the road there, is in that it's okay to disagree. It's okay to think this may not work, have a discussion about it. I was not looking for necessarily agreement. It was the way the disagreement was done, and she got disrespectful with it. I wouldn't go as far as say she got ugly, but we were close.
Well, to be fair, I knew that the way I was acting and the way I was responding to you wasn't appropriate. However, I have worked really, really hard not to allow myself to lose control and to yell.
That's true. Give credit where credit's due.
And
here.
I didn't do that.
Correct. You did not.
And
and she has, by the way. She has worked extremely hard to change that about herself, and has done really well. So I want to give credit where credit's due here.
So when you had made the decision to, and we'll back up to go through that process too, but when you made the decision that punishment was warranted, I didn't disagree with you, but I was confused. You remember I asked for clarification.
That's right. You did ask for clarification on that.
Because in my mind, I was like, well, I didn't yell. I didn't get belligerent. I didn't lose control of myself. Where did I go wrong here? Because I knew I was wrong. I knew that my behavior was inappropriate, but I didn't know exactly how.
And by the way, that was okay to ask for clarification there. Like, again, that's part of the way we have our relationship set up, is it's not considered disrespectful or wrong to say, look, I know I'm in the wrong, but I need clarification to make sure that I understand why I was in the wrong.
Well, so that I can change it.
Yeah, so you can change it. Exactly.
And
so
learn from the punishment.
And learn from it. Exactly.
And so let's go back to your process of kind of like assessing the situation and kind of making the decision that you made.
I'll try to explain this the best I can. Arya, feel free to interject to make, as you usually do, to help me sound intelligent. But my initial thing is that I didn't mind the fact that she disagreed, thought that it probably would not be. But by the way, since the dust has settled, she was right. It didn't work for me. I tried it for, couple days?
Probably not long enough to really know, but you had done some of your own research, and you had kind of decided that you wanted to maybe not go as extreme as
Yeah,
your friend had
because
gone.
as many of you know, one of the things I've discovered about diets is it's not a one size fits all. We try to do that, excuse me, in our society, and it's not a one size fits all. And so, so it was something I wanted to try. I expected perhaps that she would not think it necessarily was a good idea, but I was actually surprised. Where I first started was I was surprised at the amount of
hostility.
I didn't want to use that word, but that's probably good. Yeah, the amount of hostility that was there. It was just like, I'm going to punch you back. And I was like, wow, I didn't even come out slapping. Like, why are we going to punching now? It's kind of what it felt like. And so
all verbally.
Yeah, all verbally. No. This is not physical. Yeah, this is not physical. Verbally, it just felt like it became like this punching boxing match as opposed to, and I'm like, man, how did it get here? I didn't even come out slapping, metaphorically, right? And again, I didn't take offense to the fact that she thought that it probably would be a bad idea, that it probably wouldn't work for me. All those things were okay. It was the amount of the hostility, and it was a little bit like, I don't think she meant it this way, but it was a little like, I actually don't like the fact that you're happy about this kind of thing. And I was just like, well, I'm happy it's working for him, and I've struggled so much. I just was kind of wanted to have a discussion of whether or not you think it would work for me, and if you thought we should at least try it, then I'm excited to try it, perhaps. And I just wanted a discussion, and it wound up turning into something that I did not expect because of the amount of hostility. And so then her volume and a amount of hostility, and I want to sound like she was yelling, but she got a little irritated. It was an irritation volume.
It wasn't volume, it was tone.
Tone, sorry, thank you. Clarify tone, not volume. No, this is important. It's important to clarify that because you have worked very, very hard at stuff like this, and so I don't want to say things that are untrue. And so then that tone turned into the way she was saying things. I was like, okay, now I feel not only disrespected as the husband, I'm feeling disrespected as a person. And that for me was, nope, you've crossed the line. We're going to have a punishment here because it's not the fact that you disagreed. It's not the fact that you, even to a certain extent, maybe you're not even willing to let me try it. That's not the issue. It's the amount of hostility, tone, and disrespect that came across with that, to where by the end of it, I was like, wow, I kind of wish I wouldn't have said anything. I mean, that's where it got to.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, I didn't know if you wanted to interject with anything.
No. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I still had to ask.
You did. You did still have to ask.
Because one thing that I would say that you're still kind of working on is being better at communicating when you've made decisions on discipline.
Yes, she's right. It's not as bad as it used to be, but in a lot of places in my life, I'll have conversations with the Arya in my head, or whoever the conversation is I'm having with the person in my head, thinking we actually had the conversation when we didn't. And it's gotten a lot better, but it's still not 100%. Anyway.
And so I still had to come to you and say, hey, I know that I don't feel good about that conversation. I don't feel good about that interaction. And you agreed. You're like, no, that wasn't good.
Yep.
And I still had to ask, like, so is there going to be any follow-up with that? Like, where do we go from here?
And I think my initial response was I had to think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to think about it because I'm also somebody that has struggled in the past with making snap decisions, snap judgments. I don't like to do that.
Well, and I think part of your assessment was you wanted to see if you provoked my reaction at all.
Yes, that's exactly true. That's
because
exactly true.
There has been a situation in the past where I was disrespectful. I think that time I did raise my voice.
Yes.
But you also fed into the hostility and you provoked and continued, like, added fuel to the fire, so to speak.
Very true. This is not a lie. What she's saying
and
this is not a lie.
So my punishment in that situation was not physical. Like, you were more lenient in my consequence because you felt like it was unfair to hold me. Do you remember this?
Yeah, I do remember this. Yeah. No, as you're saying, I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember this.
And so I think part of your assessment is, okay, did I do anything as the leader to provoke this? And if so, what is a fair response and a fair consequence?
Yes, absolutely. And so you're right. I needed time to evaluate. Well, the first thing I did is I thought to myself, did I cause this? Did I come in with some type of body language, the way I said things that provoked her to potentially be angry?
And that's not to say that if you caused it, that I'm still not responsible for my reaction.
Right.
It's just you might be a little bit more. You might approach the discipline differently.
Correct. And I thought to myself, you have to tell me if you agree, because we actually never had that conversation. But I thought, I don't think I approached this poorly.
No, you didn't.
I think I came in just excited, wanted to share it with her, and I did not expect her to have the reaction that she had.
It surprised me as well. Like, to be honest, I surprised myself with how I responded. I didn't expect to have that.
Now,
like, after the fact, I'm like, where did that come from? It was really out of character.
It was. At the same time, this is the next part of the process that I went through in my head of evaluating. I have a similar have had the similar response in my workplace when someone comes in with an excitement about something, but I've had enough experience to know the thing that they're coming in excited about isn't going to work. And I've had to learn to kind of hear them out and then unemotionally give my response to where they will understand, but it won't kill their excitement. Because in the past, I caused some big rifts with people with responding the way that Arya responded to our conversation. So I understood it a little bit because I thought, ooh, I scratched an area that I've been scratched at before, where she potentially maybe thought I was going to take away her joy of cooking and take away something that she enjoys and is good at, because that has happened to me. Even recently in my job, and I had to realize it was a no-win situation, just deal with it. So I had to go through that and say, okay, I can relate to that emotion. I can relate to why she had so in other words, I was like, oh, I know why she reacted that way. But then I thought, but regardless of that, does that give her a pass on ultimately where it ended up? And the answer was no. She could have still had those feelings and communicated them better with respect.
Was it fair, though, to say that you knew immediately that some form of consequence was going to be given?
Yes. I just needed to take time to figure out what that was, to make it fair.
So is it reasonable for me to want you to say how you behaved was inappropriate, and we'll talk about your consequence later?
Yes. Okay. I'm going to bring this up because this is recently on my mind. I kind of had an epiphany last night. We've been watching Criminal Minds.
The the old episodes.
The old
I think
series.
we're in season 4 now.
Season 4. We try to watch one every night. It's just something that we do to. She really likes it. I got into it, and we do.
We like to pick series with like 10 or more seasons, so we don't have to pick a new show too often.
Yeah, too often, because that just gets a little crazy. And so that's something we enjoy to decompress at the end of the night. And there was this scene that happened in an episode last night where the superior had to get on this new recruit. And he wasn't rude, but he had to be stern.
He was very direct.
And what was your exact comment when that happened? Something
No,
like...
you said...
Well, no, you said something first after he finished.
I was like, okay, Daddy.
Yeah. But that happened the same time I had an epiphany, like, oh, this is what she's talking about. Like, when she gets out of line, I don't need to be ugly. I don't need to be mean. But that's the kind of stern I need to be with her.
Because to be completely honest, at least for me, that will end the conversation. Like,
right.
If a conversation if is getting out of hand, if my behavior is getting out of hand, that type of like direct communication to say you are out of line, this is inappropriate, that will stop the conversation. It won't allow it to continue to grow and fester and become worse.
Yeah. So the reason I bring that up is that that's a new epiphany that I had, and I look back at this situation and go, I needed to be that stern.
You needed to be able to shut it down.
Yeah. Next time I will.
But that doesn't, even if you were to do that, if you were to like shut the conversation down, would my punishment have been different?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. But what I learned from that is I need to be, that's part of the communication that we're talking about. I needed to communicate that sternly and matter-of-factly and give her the details so that she wasn't guessing. And it would not have changed the punishment. The punishment that I came down with was exactly what I think she needed for that.
And that communication doesn't mean that you need to decide the punishment right away.
Correct. No, I can still take that time to think about it.
But just communicate. There will be consequences for that, and I will talk to you later about it.
Exactly. So that's something that I've learned since that conversation. And then I did finally come to her and say, okay, I've had time to think about it and stuff, and your punishment is going to be a spanking. And so then we proceeded accordingly.
Right. And at that point of the evening, it had been a day. I can't remember what day of the week that was. I think it was... It was a day where you had to wake up early and...
it might have been like a Wednesday or something.
Are you sure? I'm not.
I'm not sure. That's what I'm saying. No, I don't know.
But it was a day that by the time you had decided my punishment, it was too late in the evening. It was just
it
not
had gotten
going...
late.
Yeah, it had gotten late. And so... against our own advice.
Do as we say, not as we do.
We did put off that punishment to the next day.
We did, and we've told you guys not to do that, but
sometimes you have to.
It happens. So, so then I got home that day. I believe we ate dinner.
Yeah.
And then I proceeded with our punishment structure, which I don't know if we want to go into details in this podcast.
Right. We are going to go into, detail in the post show that we do for Patreons. We've been meaning to do a updated detail about our punishment structure, but we can go into a little bit of detail with it as far as, how because we had, up to this point, we have been playing trial and error with our punishment structure to figure out
what works, what doesn't.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's been getting better and better, but I would say that this last punishment, the one that we're accounting now, was in my opinion, the sweet spot as far as
It's the best we've had.
Yeah,
I think. I'm like, it's the best we've had.
Speak for yourself. No. But it was the sweet spot as far as being effective, as far as being right where it should have been, as far as
longevity,
intensity, all of
that. Pacing.
Right. And so for those...
It just went well. I hope that could... I hope I don't have to punish her a lot, but if it happens, that continues, that streak continues.
And we didn't really talk about it afterwards, so this is kind of our post-punishment recap that we kind of talk about.
4 weeks later.
Yeah. Has it been 4 weeks?
I don't know. Time has gone so fast. I've lost. I don't even know.
Slow at the same time.
I had to ask somebody what year it was this week. I am not joking because yeah.
Anyway, so getting back on topic, for those who don't know, we have a detached shed that we've converted into a studio. That's where
we're at. That the patrons see.
I was like, that's where we record the podcast. Yep. That's where we do all of our work as far as Patreon is considered. But it's also where we conduct our punishments.
Yep.
And our maintenance and all of that. Because
it's
we
the
have...
multi-purpose room.
Yeah. And we really built this space not only to have a detached space, but mostly because we have a small house and a child who is at that age where her sleep schedule is unpredictable. And so we couldn't always count on her not being awake. You know, we couldn't count on when she would go to bed. And so in order to have consistency for us, we built this space, and we're very fortunate that we moved into a house that already had the shed with the sheetrock. All we had to do was kind of add some things.
Yep.
And so after dinner, you gave me like a time frame, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And did we come out together?
We did okay. Because I used to send you out by yourself.
You used to send me out for like some corner time beforehand, but we realized that doesn't really work for us. It works for a lot of people.
It didn't work for you. It made it really hard for you.
Yeah, it was just not a good thing for me. But it does work for a lot of people. It's not a bad strategy to have.
So we're not saying don't do it. It just didn't work for us.
Right.
But if it works for your relationship, fine. No issues with that.
And so the way we kind of start our punishments is that you sit and you have me either sit or kneel in front of you. And you kind of detailed, and that's when I asked. So you detailed like why I was being punished.
Right.
And that's when I asked, I'm like, can I just ask, like, where did I go wrong? Like, and the reason it was okay for me to ask is not only for clarification, but also I kind of prefaced it. I'm like, I am not trying to get out of this. I am not trying to change your mind.
You were not disagreeing.
Know. Right.
You were like, I don't disagree.
Yeah, I agreed that punishment was warranted.
Right.
I just needed to know exactly where I went wrong in that conversation so I could try to avoid that again.
Yeah. So then I detailed when it didn't bother me that you disagreed. I had no issue with the fact that you thought maybe it wouldn't work, and I would have had no issue with you detailing me why you think it wouldn't work. It was what you said to me. These things that you said, and I can't even remember what they were, but these things that you said and how you said them came off very ugly and disrespectful.
You used the word rude.
Rude, okay. Rude and disrespectful, and not only as your husband, but as a human being, those things that you said were not okay. Like, even if we weren't married, I would not have tolerated this from anybody because I'm a person. And you, I think by saying that, you understood.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
I did.
You were like, oh, yeah, okay, I get that. Mm-hmm. And so then...
Because it's important to make sure that anytime you are conducting punishment, especially a spanking, it's really, really important to make sure that she understands why it's happening, because if there's not the understanding and the acknowledgement and the yielding to the process, then punishment is not anything more than just, you know, the physicality of it, right?
Yeah, and then you have that tendency to have that your relationship becoming unbalanced, and somebody becomes the dictator and somebody becomes the doormat if you don't clarify those kind of things.
Or resentment.
Yeah. And resentment. Oh, yeah, all those things.
In all of those things.
And you don't want that. You don't want that.
And so it's really, really important. I think that you did a really good job of making sure
Thanks,
that
I'm getting better.
of making sure that I understood, and making sure that I had a proper perspective of my own behavior and why the punishment was happening.
Good, and that's the point right there, and that's taken us a while to get there, especially me, but I'm getting better at that, getting better at understanding that she's not in my head, so she needs me to tell her what's in my head.
And this conversation did not take very long. I mean,
no, it wasn't like this was a drawn out long conversation.
Now, there are some couples and some men in particular that really have a desire's the wrong word, that they have a really good way of conducting a lecture to where, you know, they do say more words, they do take more time with it. That's just not something that we found to be a strength or a necessity of our structure.
Yes. Yeah. And so if it does in your relationship, great.
And you may say, well, I don't really want to go through that at all. Again, as long as there's an understanding of why punishment is happening, I think that all you really need to do is, you know, make sure that, like, hey, do you understand why you're being punished? And if she has any questions, if she needs any clarification, that you address those, and then you can go into the punishment part.
Go into that. Yeah.
And so the way we structure our punishments, and we'll kind of briefly go over it, is right after that period of you making sure I understand, we do an over-the-knee spanking.
Yep.
With a short paddle. And
we're going to show that on the post show.
Yeah.
That's right.
On the post show, we'll go through all of this and we'll show the paddles. Again, if you want the video version of the podcast and access to the post show, click the link down below and join our Patreon at $5 a month or up, and you will have access to that.
There you go.
And so we go into an over-the-knee spanking, and the length of that really is dependent on the infraction and the necessity of the punishment.
Correct.
And then after that time, you will have me stand in the corner. And this corner time, really, you're in the room.
Because I'm in the room. Yep.
The problem with the corner time before the punishment for me was it triggered feelings of abandonment. And that's because when we were using corner time before a spanking, it was like you would leave me out here for 20, 30 minutes.
Was it that long? Or I thought it was just 15 to 20.
I can't remember. It was a while. It was a while. And you were not in the room with me.
I was not.
And so that was triggering feelings of abandonment, and that was putting me into a negative emotional space heading into
right
the
away.
Punishment.
Right. Where this time around, I felt like because I was out there with you, you were more receptive to my response.
Right. And so after the over-the-knee spanking, you do send me to the corner. It's a short corner time. It's 5 minutes at most.
It's enough just for her to kind of like gather herself before the next part of the punishment. That's what that's for. Because
what we have found, and the sweet spot for us, is that there's like 2 phases of punishment, of a punishment spanking. There's the over the knee and then a short corner time. It's like 5 minutes. And then you have me come back and I bend over the back of our lounger that we have out here because it's a studio. It's not our bedroom. We don't have a bed out here.
No.
But we have this lounger that we had in our last house. So it wasn't something we bought specifically for the studio. But it's been very helpful. Now, if we were building this from scratch and we didn't have a lounger, I think I would have opted for a twin-size bed out here.
Yeah.
Honestly.
And this might double as a guest room someday, so we might wind up putting one out here. I don't know.
We'll see. But since we already had this lounger, it's a great positioner for spanking and other things. It's sold as a sex furniture. And so it's
what it is.
Yeah, I was about to say the company that
But
sells
it's worked well for these purposes. So
right. And so you have me bend over the back of that, and then you give me some swats with a longer paddle. And again, the number is dependent on the severity of the punishment.
The punishment, right.
Now, we didn't really talk about this, but I believe that the punishment I received should be on the lesser severity. Where would you rate that as far as like less severe, moderately severe, or most severe?
Yeah,
what were you going for?
I was right off of like least severe, almost into the medium severe,
okay,
almost in there.
I would say that this punishment should be considered the least severe, and we go up from here.
Yeah, pretty much.
And again, we will detail all of that in the post show. Just don't know exactly what's YouTube friendly.
Well, and we don't want to make these super long for you guys.
Right.
So if you want to watch them in sections, that's another reason we do the post show, so you can watch the episode and then watch the post show.
And to just offer our Patreons some bonus content.
Yeah, we're just we're not trying to be so formal. We try to make this a little bit more formal. So.
And so you had given those, and those are more severe swats. Those are harsher.
Yeah.
And so the pacing of those is you deliver the swat, you allow me to some time to kind of receive that and compose myself to accept
before the next swat.
Yeah. And so after all of those are done, you send me back to the corner again for just a short 3 to 5 minutes.
And again, that's mainly for her to be able to gather her emotions and herself.
Yep. And then you kind of move into aftercare as far as like we don't necessarily do a formal like aftercare routine.
No.
But it's more of just like at that point I apologize, you make sure that I understand.
Again, I reiterate, and then make sure that you understand why you just got punished.
Right. And we have a little conversation, just like, I'll apologize. You'll say I'm forgiven. Do you understand? And I don't think that you ask me to detail too much as far as like,
no.
Some couples find it beneficial to have, that, how can you avoid this in the future conversation. We don't really do that.
No.
And so, but you do reiterate that I understand and that I'm forgiven and that you know that I will do better. You give me that reassurance that I will do better in the future and that you believe in me and that
all is forgiven.
Yeah.
That all is forgiven, all has been made right. And then when we step out these doors, or this door, not two doors, we step out this door, that we're starting over. It's new. Everything has been made new. But learn the lesson that you just went through.
Now, one thing that was kind of different was because I felt like we had finally kind of got to that place of like this was really effective. My emotional process after the fact was a little bit more intense because I was emotionally processing the fact that I had been disrespectful to you, that I had disappointed you, that I had put myself in a position to need to be punished. And I was apologetic. I knew I was forgiven, so that wasn't the issue. But we went inside. Our daughter was in the living room and she needed something. So I got her what she needed real quick. And then I was like, I need to go lay down. And I laid down and I cried in our bedroom.
Right.
And that was okay. That was not a sign that things went wrong.
No, not at all.
That was actually a sign that things went right. And
Because
so
now you needed your time to allow yourself to, in order to wipe the slate clean, you needed to go through that emotional process.
And thinking about it, perhaps I should have just stayed out here by myself to do that.
Maybe, but maybe you needed a comfy bed too.
I was about to say, I kind of wanted my bed. And I hope, because again, we didn't really talk about it, I hope that didn't deter you or make you feel negatively about the punishment.
No, if anything, it actually made me feel like I had done the right thing. And the way that I looked at it is there was maybe a little bit of doubt, but I thought if there's an issue, she will let me know after she's gone through this process. I'm not going to interrupt the process that you were going through.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thanked you immediately after.
You did.
And I think that's not something that we've ever formally talked about. It's not something that you've ever required of me.
But it helped. It did help.
But I do try to make it a habit to thank you for my discipline.
And the reason that it helped is it made me realize, hey, I made the right call. And don't underestimate how important that is.
So I think that's...
We've come to the end of the episode.
But that kind of details a situation and your process of deciding what the punishment should be, and our process of going through that. So
we'll go into some more details with the paddles and stuff on the post show.
If you guys liked this story time, please give this video a like. Leave us a comment. Let us know. We were thinking about maybe making these story time videos more regular. So if you like this and you want to hear more stories like more stories of our personal accounts, just let us know. And if you have any topic suggestions, let us know in the comments as well. If you're not already, please subscribe if you want to get more of the content that we offer. So and like I said, if you want to get the video form, want to get the bonus content as well as written articles, go ahead and click the link down below and join us over on Patreon.
Thank you to all our patrons.
All right, bye guys.